This is Keys to the Shop, episode 227, Connecting with Hearts and Minds. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFurio. I'm your host for the show. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe to Keys to the Shop wherever you get this podcast. That way you'll never miss out on an episode. And also, if you would leave a rating or review for this show, that would be awesome as well. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is one of the world's best specialty coffee equipment suppliers because they curate the best equipment from all over the world and match it perfectly with the needs of their customers. If you're looking to open a new cafe or open a second cafe or just upgrade the equipment that you've got right now, Prima Coffee is an amazing partner to work with in helping you get the right gear. When you go to their website over at prima-coffee.com, you'll see what I mean. Their selection is amazing, and also their resources on their website are amazing as well. They put a lot of work into creating free resources to help you brew better coffee, make latte art, use the equipment well. They're all about setting you up for success in your specialty coffee endeavors. That's why I love working with them, and I recommend that you work with them as well. A really great company and group of people to work with when you're looking for the best equipment and service to go along with that over at prima-coffee.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by the world's leader in plant-based performance beverages. That, of course, is Pacific Foods in their Pacific Barista Series. The Barista Series has taken the world by storm because the name performance beverage is not just a name, it's actually what it does. It performs excellently on your bar. They develop their range of products, whether that's almond, soy, coconut, rice, hemp, oat, with a lot of feedback from the barista community. They want to design these so that the people using it on the bar are excited to use it, and your customers are excited to drink it. You know, I think if you're looking for the best in plant-based options on your menu, then the Barista Series is the perfect fit for you. So if you would go to their website over at pacificfoodservice.com and explore the options, get these in your stores, taste them for yourself, you'll see what I mean. It's really an amazing product, fantastic company, and it shows in each and every cup. So again, visit them at their website, pacificfoodservice.com. And when you think about plant-based beverages, think the Barista Series from Pacific. Okay, well, today I wanted to talk about something I think is so critical and at the same time very difficult, I think, to take action on. And so that's why we're talking about it, because a lot of times on the show, we want to have actionable insights, things like you do this, this, and this, and because you did those three things, you will get this result. And that's, a lot of the information that we would consume on here from experts or, stuff that I would share with you myself. I want it to be practical. And today's episode's, I think, going to be practical, but it's difficult because this is something that is not so just based on hard copy. This is not something you can look up on a chart. We're talking about connecting with people. We're talking about basically winning over the hearts and minds of your customers as a way of, actually the primary way of building resiliency into your business, and how the new return on your investment needs to be not just the patronage of your customers, but the hearts and minds of your customers. We'd like to talk about communication, and we've had recent episodes about communication and why it's important to put a good message out there, a consistent message on brand that is something authentic. And we all really are. There's so many books about branding. There's so many books and talks about communication, and we're really good, I think, at communicating. Information. We have information on the bags. We've got it on our website. We've got information to share with people at a moment's notice when they ask us about the coffee or whatever. So we're usually involved in giving people information. And in large part, that's where things kind of end. We don't have necessarily conversations so much as we have monologues. And we'd like to think that we can create such a nuanced monologue that almost we don't even need to have a conversation. Well, we're discovering more and more that what actually works best is to have a conversational way of communicating. I could say words, it doesn't mean the words mean anything to you. They start to mean something when I connect, when I'm a listener and not just a speaker, when I am a student of the person or people that I'm talking to, and not just a teacher who's teaching. I'm not doing a good job of teaching if I'm not listening also and studying who I'm teaching to or communicating with, or if I think I can't even learn from the people that I'm teaching, for that matter. But the point is that this is a conversational way of going about communication that transforms it into connection. So let's look at what happened with COVID-19, for example. And I've said this on the show previously, but people are eager to get back to their coffee shops. They are realizing just how dear that shop was to them because it became part of who they were. And subconsciously, people respond with more generosity, both emotionally and financially, when it comes to a place that touches their heart, that connects with them. And so these are the places that people just really want to get back to. Now, if my local Jiffy Lube is closed, I'm not going to be like, gosh, it's really such a shame that they had to close that Jiffy Lube. It was such an important part of my daily routine. That's a service. Me making coffee for somebody is a service. The manner in which I make it, how I am as a person, the way that the team is together, etc., the whole context, the experience, that's the connection. That's hospitality. It's the nature of the relationship that really counts. And so we see people that band together, not necessarily for the places that just, were information-based or service-based only, but the places that were based in hospitality that really did a good job of reaching people's hearts and minds. And I think this moment in our history is where we can retool the way that we look at success in the store. Most of us, and I've done this too, we have this tendency, because we are always in front of a screen, we tend to use what shows up on our screen as a metric for what reality is. Okay, so when I'm looking at the reports on Square or whatever POS system you use, when you're looking at your reports, you in some way think this is the definitive. This will tell me ultimately how we're doing. It's in the numbers, right? We had a very early episode with a gentleman named Simon Outerkirk. I'll link to that in the show notes about, how to read data and metrics in your shop. Very good one to listen to. But the point of those numbers for us is it's proof of us doing a good job. Now, I'm not saying that numbers aren't important. In fact, right now, we want the numbers to work. We have to have the numbers work. We cannot survive unless we get X amount of sales. If we keep our labor percentage within this amount, we need numbers to work. But going forward, we can't just focus on numbers. We can't just allow ourselves to put so much stock in our customers' patronage as we do put into knowing whether or not the experience behind those numbers is a sustainably excellent one. In other words, if you see a sale for, a couple but comes in and buys $25 worth of pastries and coffee over a 20-minute visit, and they do this like 10 times over the course of 2 months, okay? You, by all account, by the time you reach 5 visits and you see that in the numbers, you would assume that this person really enjoys their experience. Why else would they come into the store to buy $25 worth of pastries and coffee? Okay. But what the numbers don't tell you is the nuance of the story. Maybe it doesn't tell you that within those 10 visits, 7 or 8 of them are not the best experiences ever. In fact, maybe they were actually frustrating, but they already paid for their food, they already paid for their drinks, and so they made the best of it. They're actually maybe generous people. They don't want to complain too much, and they're here, so let's just make the best of it, okay? They don't outright hate their experience, but they're not thrilled with it, okay? But the money is there, so our assumption is the money represents happiness. Customers are happy because the money's in my bank. That's absolutely not true. That assumption is so dangerous because guess what? It takes customers a long time, oftentimes many, many visits of disappointing experiences before they decide to start bringing their money somewhere else. And really, it's not them bringing their money. They don't think about it that way necessarily. They think about bringing themselves somewhere else. So that they need time to make this decision. And while they're making that decision, who is it that's in the cafe watching them experience the coffee, watching the customer service and the hospitality? Who is it that's really tuned into the nuances behind the metrics to see whether or not what you look at in the reports is actually representative of reality that you're assuming it represents? See, that's not really evidence. You doing well in sales is not evidence of you connecting with people in their hearts and minds. It's just you connecting to their wallet, but you could all the while be losing them internally while gaining their money externally. If you don't know your customers very well, every answer they give, you can take at face value. There's not much nuance to it. You don't know them well enough to know that look in their eye when something isn't right. You're not paying attention to them enough to know that you need to adjust something down the line to make them, to create a more friction-free experience for them in your store. To you, again, the sales represent absolute success. Okay? Instead of being skeptical towards them, it's just blind affirmation of success, because we don't want to believe that we need to, work on some things, right? An example of this is when, my wife asked me to share this because I think it's pretty funny. She was getting ready to make dinner, and she said, "Do you want to help me?" And I said, "Yes." Now, she stopped because I said yes, okay? But she stopped and she said, "It doesn't look like you really want to help me, because I know when your eyes don't move, that it means maybe not that you don't want to help me." Because she knew my tell that there was a hesitancy. Now, of course, because I was tired, and if I'm being honest, if she hadn't have asked me, maybe I wouldn't have. Okay, there was lots of times that I have helped, but if she didn't ask me, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But I did say yes. But because she knows me so well, she knew that my yes was not necessarily an enthusiastic yes, that I had to think about it a little bit, which means there's a story behind it. And then I said yes. See, if you don't know your customer very well, and you only know them based on the data, based on the metrics and stuff, then you'll ask them, "Was your experience really good?" And they'll say yes. And you'll say, "Cool, great, moving on." A lot of times people just say that stuff. Like when you say, "How's it going?" "Good, how are you?" It's just what we say. But what's behind it? That's where we build resiliency. That's where we win people's hearts and minds, when we become curious, when we start to study our community and start to focus our time and energy into understanding them and not just the data that represents them. I mentioned this already, but what I like to think is that those of us who aren't tuned into our community and our customers, we tend to think if people didn't like it, they wouldn't come here. As if, if we're talking, let's think about the turning radius of a vehicle. Like, there's some really small cars that you could just turn them on a dime, right? And we think that's how customers are. Okay, if there's a problem, they tell us. If they didn't like their service, they wouldn't come back. And if they're coming back, they like it. It's all so black and white. It's all so easy, right? Just turn, and then you turn. But actually, customers are more like a semi-truck. They make wide turns. It takes them a long time. And we have to realize that it's in the details that we can correct that turning. Like, we can catch them mid-turn and say, "Oh, we're losing this customer." And them not leaving is still an opportunity for us to, elevate our service, to elevate our communication, so it's actually conversation, so it's actually connection with them. And so the question becomes, how do we do that? What is the best way to actually put action to becoming more focused on winning over people's hearts and minds, connecting with them as people, so that their patronage is not just this rote you make coffee and I buy coffee and that's the end of it. But it's the type of thing where they rave about you. They don't know what it is about this place, but fill in the blank. They just feel the need to write a personal email. They drop off a card. They actually bake you cookies. Lots of you have already had this type of experience, and that's awesome. It's almost more meaningful to have somebody bring you something out of the blue than it is to see that they spent a little extra money, because it shows you've reached some kind of a new level of connection. There's something deep and primal and right about that when we're working in hospitality, when we know we've reached that depth. And in this case, depth is actually indicative of reaching a new height, right? So let's talk about what you can do. First, I think you need to look at how much time you're spending with your reports versus how much time you're spending in the store. Are you watching what happens in your store? Are you watching your employees? Are your employees watching what's happening in the store? You need to be aware of what's happening in the business. There's a concept in manufacturing and our philosophy, Japanese philosophy in manufacturing called Kaizen, which is roughly translated to incremental constant improvement. There's a concept within Kaizen that's called Gemba, that is basically going to where the center of production is to view the work being done, because you can't really fix what's wrong unless you see where it's happening. And you also reverse, you can't fortify what is right unless you see that right happening. So in your store, if you spend more time behind the computer watching the numbers than you do watching the people that generate those numbers, you're not going to get the kind of connection you need, okay? You have to be in tune with your community. And in the beginning of this episode, I mentioned that this is hard to really prescribe because it's not an exact science. It's a gut level thing. It's an intuition that you develop. Like after 20 years of working in coffee, I could tell you when a shot's going to be bad or good just by looking at it. But if you just get into coffee as a barista, you've got to wait for the shot to get all the way through and then taste it to let you know whether or not it's a good shot. And even then you might not know. Okay. So you have to start getting in touch with and actually placing yourself in the vicinity of where all this business is happening and observing it and absorbing it and letting that be the lens you view your numbers through. So you can adjust things, so you can make good decisions that are connected to reality and not just the byproduct of reality, which is the numbers, right? So that's the first thing. Audit yourself. The second action I think you should take is, once you've done that yourself, you need to start teaching that to your employees. You need to start teaching them to observe and really tune into the needs of the guest in an intuitive way, so that your entire team is actually on the ball and it learns to pick up on these subtle cues that guests give when there's something slightly askew. When you become focused on these things, then it becomes easier to make adjustments, right? To adjust yourself, the surroundings, or to fix a problem, or even stop problems before they happen. But without that, again, you're like that barista who just starts, then they have to waste a lot of time trying to figure out what's wrong, versus a seasoned barista who can just say, no, that's not going to work out at all. So basically, you need to train your team. The last thing for me is twofold. One, when you consider who you're serving two groups of people. You're serving your customers, true, but you're also serving your staff. So all of the things that we're talking about when it comes to the experience of the customer actually also applies to the experience your staff are having in your store. Your staff are your customers too. The product is the experience of working for you. Are they glad that they spent the life that they have, right? The energy that they have? Are they glad that they exchanged that for money with you in your store? Are they just saying that? Do you have any perception of nuance? Have you witnessed them working on the bar? Can you sense when they're holding something back or there's more to the story? Or do you just assume, it's fine, they're doing all right, Now, we have a shift break coming up later this week. I think you'll be really interested to listen to for this topic a little bit more. It's, I think, very insightful. So be sure to tune in on Thursday for more on that. But your customers are not just your customers, they're also your staff. More and more, we are concerned with building a team that is taken care of and takes care of each other, and therefore takes care of the customers, right? You can't be there all the time, but your staff are there all the time. So yes, your customers, but also your staff. Apply these same things to your staff in your meetings with them and how you observe them working, so that you know how to adjust things to make it better or to correct things. And it's based on reality, right? Of what you've actually observed. You can also train your managers to recognize these things too. The manager's customer is their staff and the customer. So all the way up and down the chain of command in a store, we've got different sets of customers and people within the organization and outside the organization that we need to be concerned with winning hearts and minds and connecting with in a real way. Now, if I had to sum up exactly, a framework to focus on, I think it would be 4 things. One, you need to nurture a sense of belonging. Whether we're talking about staff or customers, we all want to feel like we belong in a place. So we want to make our place welcoming to all people. We want to make working at our store a welcoming place. A sense of belonging is one of the most primal needs that we have as humans. So when we win that battle, we put ourselves on very good footing. Now, second would be a thing that is connected directly to how a person would feel a sense of belonging, and that is that we spend a lot of time being actively interested in people, being curious and affirming that person and investing into them to help them grow. So it's all positive. Even the stuff that's adjusting what they do on the bar and in training and things like that, it's all positive in pushing them forward. And that helps them realize that, like we said in the last shift break, you're in it for the long term. The relationship is not just about a transaction. It's not just about a moment in time. You're there for the long haul. You have a long game strategy in terms of how you approach them, and that shows in how you're curious, how you're interested. People who want to hurry through a conversation, they don't have time for curiosity. Like, what if you actually answer their question with an honest answer? This could take all day. I mean, being curious and affirmative and investing into people helps them feel that sense of belonging as customers and as staff. Now, number 3 of the 4 things that you can do to really connect with people, provide novel experiences that are grounded in your values. So you're not necessarily changing up everything and uprooting the whole place and purpose of what you do, but you're providing interesting things along the way. You're creating things like seasonal drinks. You're creating events and different activities and things that make it interesting to be there as a staff member or as a customer. You're doing that all on the foundation of your values and who you are, but that really helps connect with people because you don't necessarily just want the same thing every single day. By offering something a little bit different, it provides a little fun, right? It really deepens a relationship. You have a good relationship is a relationship you can have fun in. And fun oftentimes is based on novelty, okay? It's not just all rote utility. So you have to provide what I would call grounded novelty for people. And then, of course, in all of this, you have to have consistent service. Service is still important in hospitality. You've got to have a good quality product. Your bathroom has to have toilet paper. You've got to have clean tables. In COVID-19, you've got to have the mask. You got to have the sanitizer. All the service points need to be taken care of religiously. Those things are all really just a given. They should be a given, and they require a lot of support from you because at the end of the day, the service of what you're providing is a part of the relationship. Now, if you divorce any of this stuff from the equation, you'll find the experience lacking. You'll find the connection lacking. And ultimately, your business won't be as strong because your connection is not as strong. A business that employs these things is a business that the community will fight for, and the community will show up for more and ultimately buy more stuff from your store. And they'll support you in lots of different ways too, because it's evident that your business supports them being both the customers and the staff. You want people raving about going there and buying your coffee, and you want people to rave also about their experience working for you. That happens on the back of connection. So to wrap this up, I think it's easy for us to look out to the world and be very uncertain about the future. And we all see chaos, and we see just we wonder what's going to happen. And ultimately, the question we're all asking ourselves is, how do I feel grounded and in a place of connection right now? Like, we feel distant and we crave that connection. In going forward, that currency is going to be more important than almost money itself. Yes, we need to make the money. Yes, we need to make the numbers work, but we also need to make sure that what is behind those numbers is also working, or we're just going to encourage more uncertainty. And if we're honest with ourselves, up to this point, we've been living with uncertainty a lot longer than COVID, because we haven't really explored what those numbers mean. We haven't really explored the nuances of the customer experience the way we should have been all along. I would encourage you to take the principles in this episode and apply it to your cafe as soon as possible, because the future is going to belong to people who are not only financially profitable, but are also relationally profitable on top of it. So I hope that this episode was a helpful one for you. If you have any questions or comments or feedback for me, just email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. That's my email address. If you want to inquire about Keys to the Shop consulting, maybe doing some short-term over-the-phone consultation, or you got some problems that you need to work through, or maybe something longer-term, like a project, or you're opening your own store, or you need some help elevating your operational standards in your existing store, I'm here to help you. Just reach out again to me, chris@keystotheshop.com. I'd love to speak with you. And with that is the end of our episode. Don't forget to tune in for the shift break later this week. And I hope you have an amazing week. Thanks so much. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.